Alrighty, dudes, what's up? We are back again, this time with some interesting Shadowlands content. Basically, on the front page of Wowhead, currently there is this mega post where it's talking about Shadowlands class changes and preview, which is effectively an early preview of class changes and class philosophy that Blizzard made today, kind of discussing some of the class changes. They said it's not a comprehensive list, it's just going to be just like a peek into what is actually going to change. One of the more interesting notes in their philosophy section is basically the Shadowlands portion. It says, in Shadowlands, we want to return the idea that a specialization is about powering up a specific part of a class's kit, not narrowing down their tool set. In an expansion that is all about choice, we also want to give players opportunities to make impactful choices, to customize their gameplay, and to express their own vision of how their characters engage in combat. Many specialization-specific abilities and spells that help define the identity of the class will once again be available class-wide, and we are reintroducing some of the iconic abilities to give to all of Azeroth's heroes. A fighting chance against the dangers ahead. In addition to these changes, players will also have their new Covenant class abilities to look forward to, which we will preview comprehensively in our Shadowlands look at Covenant classes and signature abilities blog. Basically, Covenants are going to be a different take on what Legendaries and Azerite has been. It's going to be like a systematic expansion system that they are going to create. There have been a lot of controversy in terms of how Covenants end up working out. They're supposed to release the alpha later this week, and maybe there will be better insight as to how the Covenants end up fully playing out. So I guess we're going to see how that ends up working out. But in the meantime, we do have some good class changes coming to the Druid class, which will ultimately help balance. I think it will make it a little bit more fair in the long run. So the first thing is that all Druids will be able to use Ferocious Bite, Barkskin, Cyclone, Stampeding Roar, and Ironfur, regardless of their active specialization. Okay, thank God that we got Stampeding Roar. That button, really good. Even if it is that really bad Stampeding Roar that Feral Druid has, you can even use that just for yourself, which is nice. Cyclone, this baseline does have some niche usage in PvE content. Ultimately, I think it's going to mostly be used for like bolstering targets and trying to make sure that you don't end up killing targets too soon, because it does end up, it's like Banish, where the target can't be DPS through until the Cyclone ends. So you can stop a mob from bolstering with Cyclone if they are able to be Cycloned. Those two are nice. In addition to that, Heart of the Wild has returned as a talent, providing an option for Druids who want to use off-roll abilities during combat. I think Heart of the Wild is TBD. It's definitely one of the more highly sought-after flavor abilities that we've seen requested coming back. I didn't play in a time where Heart of the Wild was OP. Everybody talks about Mist of Pandaria, Heart of the Wild being just like the pinnacle of the talent. Heart of the Wild got replaced with like the Affinity system in Legion. So I guess we're going to end up seeing how it all ends up working out. I think this is like too early to say if this is necessarily good or bad, but it's definitely something. Now, let's get into something that's pretty interesting. The Affinity Talents associated with each specialization, Balance, Guardian, Feral, and Restoration, also gain an additional utility ability. Balance receives Typhoon, Feral gets Maim, Guardian gets Incapacitating Roar, and Resto can use Ursul's Vortex. So what this means is that Typhoon is no longer a talent. Ursul's Vortex is no longer a talent. And no longer a talent that you pick in of itself, like an ability that's talented. Effectively, Balance has Typhoon baseline, Feral gets Main baseline, Guardian gets Incap Roar baseline, Restoration gets Ursul's Vortex baseline, and then whenever you're picking the Affinity row, you get the associated abilities, and then if you pick Balance Affinity, you get a Typhoon in addition to your base ability. So for Balance, you're going to have Typhoon baseline, and I think probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to pick Restoration Affinity for Ursul's Vortex, because Ursul's Vortex is rather strong. So that's actually really nice. The ability to be able to pick between Ursul's Vortex, Incapacitating Roar, and Maim are all very cool. I would like to see maybe if Incapacitating Roar is able to be used in balance form, maybe that could have some uses as some additional stops. Ursul's Vortex is probably going to be the default out of all of these, though. This is a cool change. I really like that change. How they're actually making the affinities do something more than just like, okay, dude, you get like a really, really watered down version of that Specs toolkit. So maybe it'll end up being more. So for balance specific stuff, let's talk about that. Solar and lunar empowerments are being strengthened and updated into eclipses, reminiscent of past expansions like Wrath of the Lich King, Wrath, and Starfire. Starfire was the name of Lunar Strike before it got renamed. I don't know if they're renaming it again or not, but I assume they're renaming it by that. Will grant each other alternating lunar and solar eclipses for a longer duration with special moments of celestial alignment, allowing both to occur at once. So the way that reads is that I think we're getting the eclipse system back, and I think we're getting a new we're getting a rework on a resource again. We're moving away from builder spender back to something that's more. I think it reads like it's more pendulum based, but it's hard to really say. Balanced Druids who master the flow of these eclipses will be able to ensure a period of sustained power to either Wrath or Starfire at key moments of a fight. Star Surge will extend the current eclipse to continue focusing power into either Wrath or Starfire, while Starfall instead extends your current Moonfire and Sunfire effects, giving the main arcane power spenders distinct roles based on the situation. That's very good. I'm glad that they're making like a very clear distinction between what Star Surge is supposed to do and what Starfall is supposed to do, and it's not letting it fall into this weird-ass niche where you end up Starfalling on a single target or you'll end up Star Surging on 8 targets. Wow, what a fucking meme. But yeah, so basically it looks like they're going to be bringing back some form of the Eclipse system. It's hard to really say exactly what it's going to be. It should end up being more interesting than what we currently have. In addition to that, Starfall will return to its previous design used from Wrath of the Lich King through Warlords of Draenor. Instead of needing to telegraph the effect area, Balanced Druids will call down a wave of stars which strike the surrounding ground while they stand, run, or flat for its duration. So basically, in previous expansions, Starfall would be like a 40-yard radius around your character, and whenever you just press the button, every single target that you were in combat with within 40 yards would, or even mobs that you weren't in combat with, would get hit by Starfall. Like, we were the original, I'm going to fucking pull this through the wall class, because, I don't know, it was bad. Maybe, I wonder if Starfall is going to see a return in terms of like what we saw at the very end of Warlords of Draenor, where Starfall got changed to only hit mobs that had a dot on them, so that it doesn't allow people to pull through walls. If it's pulling through walls in Mythic Plus, I would see that as fairly problematic, but I do expect this to be a little bit more convenient for players than that, especially since more players are running increasingly more dungeons. So yeah, in addition to that, Starfall is increasing your current like dots, like your Moonfire and Sunfire effects. So I assume that maybe it'll just hit, it may only hit targets that are already previously dotted. I think that would ultimately be a good change. And as long as they can get like the balancing of how the spec ends up functioning, and it should end up feeling better than it currently stands. So what we saw at the beginning of BFA is that the class was like a Wrath bot. You would cast like 7 Wraths in a row, and then like they added the current form of the Eclipse system, which would bring monotony to your rotation, but the rotation feels pretty poor just as a general rule, especially if you start stripping away Azerite and whatnot. So seeing that it's actually getting a full resource rework like this is definitely going to be for the better. Beyond that, you guys can check out this Wildhood post. I'm going to link that down in the description. There's a ton of other class changes. I just wanted to cover Balanced Druid, just to kind of give a little bit more insight as to what we're going to see. Ultimately, these class changes look good, and as long as the Shadowlands systems end up moving forward in a strong way, and the Covenants end up looking good, I'm going to cover those at some point. As long as the Covenants end up looking good, then maybe we're going to be in for a treat of an expansion in terms of Balanced Druid design. I really hope that like for me personally, I really hope that Balanced Druid stays at its similar role in Raid. It feels pretty good in Raid, while moving into more of a defined role in Mythic Plus, especially with all this utility ability that it is bringing. So that'll be all. Yep, I'm going to link this down in the description. I'm also going to link my Twitch, my Discord, some other stuff down in the description as well. Make sure to check that out. I will be covering more Shadowlands content as it is released. We're going to talk about some other stuff just as I do get that information. Beyond that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you later. Peace.